Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming on a little bit early. We'll just wait just another minute to be able to let the rest of the people that registered for this webinar. So we'll just hold on a second, okay? Okay, so we're at the top of the hour when we said we would start the overall webinar. And once again, thanks for joining. My name is Jason French. I am the VMS Solution Manager in North America. And this is the introduction to DeLaval VMS Batch Milking for the North American market. But we were certainly overwhelmed by the overall interest from around the globe on VMS batch milking and your time here. So thanks for joining. I just ask everybody if you wouldn't mind muting, and you don't need to be on the camera as well. Thanks, Stefan. And we can make this webinar really solid for you. Thanks for the DeLaval team for putting a lot of information together for us as well. Muhyiddin Laban is on board. He will monitor the chat, and that's where we'd like to have any questions go. So if you have any questions along the way, please throw them in the chat. We'll answer them as we go along, but for sure we'll stop at the very end and have that time to go through any questions that you do have. So once again, VMS batch milking, a new concept here for many, many people. And, we look in North America, your VMS your way. So we have our VMS system, but we really want you to know what you want to do with your VMS your way so you know how to manage your cows.
Open up or else I'm knocking down the door. Gonna make you wonder why you never tried before. You strike a match, start the fire, por favor. You can make it what you want. Go on. Make it what you want. You can make it. You can make it what you can make it. Make it what you want. You can make it. You can make it what you can make it. Make it what you want.
And those families from that we give examples here are from North America, and they all have their different ways on how they want to manage their cows. From this gentleman and his daughter on their 3V300 facility to the 20 robot facilities that we had there, but they did it their way. They managed it their way, and that's what we're looking for them to work with our VMS system moving into the future. And we have many, many people that are looking for that next facility. How are we going to plan it? And, we have a large team at DeLaval that can help with that sort of thing. And it really, comes down to that we've seen people are wondering, should they be selecting robots for their new facility, or should they be selecting a rotary? And that seems to be the biggest thing, robots or rotary, because, do we stay with more of a conventional style? Or do we stay with now or go into more of a robotic system? But it really comes down to, how do you really want to manage your facility? What is your style of managing your cows, managing your people, and managing what kind of expectations that you're going to have today and into the future? Because we certainly know with a lot of operations that next generation is coming on, and they may be looking for something different as well. But what we see is people come to DeLaval to say, how can I automate the milking process so it's a little easier? Because we know that labor is an issue in many centers. And, that ability to get good people to work and stay on farm for a long period of time has been tough. So how do I get more automation to the milking process? A lot of people, conventional milking, they really enjoy that aspect of things, and they see robotic milking as some great advantages as well. So let's take the time to kind of go through that. And what are some of the key things for conventional milking and the key things for robotic milking? So on the conventional milking side, a lot of people like that because they have set milking times. We know we're going to start at 4 in the morning. We're going to end around 9 or 10, depending on the size of your herd, repeat in the afternoon. And that's just a comfort level to know I have the cows milked. We can go on to other jobs during the day. And then it's just that overall pattern, of working, as well. So just moving cows from the pens to a holding area is a simple exercise. Standard schedules within the barn too, because now the cows have all left that pen. We can bed up easily, no cows in the way, that sort of thing. That's an advantage that people seem to like. Where feeding is very important. Saw there was a long list of people in the nutrition world joining today. Setting a TMR. We know that there's a standard TMR for the main group. We're going to have a fresh group, low group, that sort of thing. Easy. We don't have to worry about pellets that are running through a robot, that would interfere with this. It's a simple TMR kind of a system. And then finally, grouping cows by those different stage of lactations or production levels. We get a high group, low group, fresh group, 2-year-olds, and so on and so forth. Pretty easily done, and be able to switch, when it comes to a conventional milking setup. But let's look at robot side. And the main thing why people get into robotics, it's labor. They come into robotics because they've been struggling getting people or even the quality of people to come work on their farm. And so they're looking at robotics to help them on that labor side. Then it's just what robots can do. And it comes down to the consistency of what robots can do and prepping teats and just the overall milking procedure. Because every cow that comes in will be done the same way. But, at DeLaval with our robot, we can adjust to based on how the cow's milk flow is, the size of the cow as well. Those are some features to have a really improved setting for that overall experience for the cow. But we want to also look at that if you were to train 10 people and do a certain way, they're all going to be doing it still a little differently. And then you get somebody new, so then you got to teach them again, where the robots are going to have that great consistency. The biggest thing too, with robots is data. You can get so much data, so much information on robots from how the robot's working, and then obviously into cow data. And we can collect on individual quarter basis because we have 4 milk meters for blood and conductivity, milk flow, milk levels, that sort of thing that really put in good herd management reports at the same time. Plus, we can build more sources around our robots where we now are adding more technology onto our robotic system for better herd management. So this is just a little bit of the key features of conventional milking, key features of robotic milking that we think about when we get into VMS batch milking. If we continue on that robot talk, if you're planning the facility and your goals that you want to get to and the situation that you're in, you've had 2 options with us. We've offered free traffic, and 50% of our farms are free traffic, where the other 50% are a guided traffic system where they've seen the benefits in those systems for less fetching, reduced pellets, that sort of thing. That's how they want to manage their farm. But still, if that's not for you, now we can include VMS batch milking. It's using this exact same V300 robot like the other 2 systems, but we're just going to set it up differently. And it's just going to be a different kind of a management style. Because for those farms that are looking to do that facility planning, they're still looking at the conventional side. Yeah, but I still like my milk times set for morning and night, or morning, night, evening. Afternoon, evening. And then, just the overall routines that our team is doing. I like how to manage the cows there, but I see the advantages of robotics, but I don't want to go to a 24-hour voluntary robot milking system. So there's a gap, so what can we do within that gap? And we really see where VMS batch milking is going to fill that gap. Because when you add the key features that we talked about on conventional milking, plus now adding robot technology and the robot milking process, now we have VMS batch milking. So when you have the overview of a farm, what does this look like? Well, now we have a VMS batch milking center where the parlor was. So this is like a double 12 parlor, double 12 parallel parlor with a holding area, just like we used to have with a parlor or a rotary. And now we can keep the rest of the barn pretty much the way it is. We can keep our groups. We're not now putting robots in different parts of the barn, worrying about longer milk transport lines, that sort of thing. We can have a good central spot to have the milking done, just like you were used to before. So these are some of the things that we talk about to explain VMS batch milking, but you're here to dive into a little bit more of what's going on. So this is the agenda that we're going to have today. We're first going to talk about cow movement. Like, once again, how do cows move in this system? Because we're used to robots and voluntary milking. Then we're going to talk about just overall capacity. How many robots do I need and that sort of thing. And I'm really happy to have Stephanie Dillon joining us today from our DeLaval advisory team. And she's just going to talk about the overall support and what those labor needs are and how DeLaval can support farms going to batch milking. Then we'll get into probably what you're thinking, the comparison of why not a rotary? Why not go voluntary? And we'll go over some of the points that we brought up in that situation too. Then finally, we'll end it by what's going on with the rest of our series of webinars and kind of feature what's going on in our second webinar that's going on in February. So let's pop over to that cow movement side. So, once again, voluntary systems, we're putting a robot, 2, 3, possibly 4 into a group of cows. But now when it's batch milking, how is this different? How is it different than conventional milking? So we're going to go over a few different things, with this barn example here. We're going to talk about the groups themselves, the pens of cows. We're going to talk about how we transfer those cows, up to the holding area and the robots. We'll talk about the holding area itself and how it's different and how we organize ourselves with that. Then the milking system, how we're set up. And then how we're exiting the robots, getting back to pens, sort areas, things like that. So let's roll back to the number one, and it's your group. So group sizes are going to vary based on that, 60, 80, 100, 200, 250 cows, based on how many robots you're going to need. But it's just like conventional milking, where you pretty much open up a gate, the cow handler's in there, getting those cows to start back, going to the actual holding area for the robots. But at the same time, they could be cleaning stalls, visualizing, watching cows, to see if there's any, signs of issues with cows and that sort of thing. So that makes it, really quite good as well. But once again, those cows have now left that area, and now we can roll in, with any kind of bedding system that we have that we're going to put bedding in to those stalls. So it's kind of nice to have it when all the cows have left. Now, when we organize these groups as well, we need to know that size, like I mentioned, but we now start talking what order are we going into the holding area, because we're looking at moving a group of cows up to the holding area, but there are going to be cows coming back from the robots as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about it, but we don't want that kind of crossover effect here. So we want to milk them in a certain order, so we have good cow flow, good cow traffic within the barn. So that transfer of cows, we want something that's a wide lane. One person can do this job, and that there's 2, 3 wide, maybe more coming into the holding area. And it's pretty interesting because once that cow gets up, she can go right to a robot. It's not like a parlor, say you had, a 12 unit, double 12, And on the 12 side, that first cow gets into the parlor, and now she's got to wait for 11 of her friends to come before the milking process starts. Well, now, it's still individual. She's going up to that holding area. She sees what favorite robot is hers. If it's available, she's going right in. And if there's another one, she's going right in. And some of those cows are actually returning before sometimes that last cow even leaves that holding area, based, of course, on how far apart, but it happens quite often. So it's just a different kind of relaxed atmosphere, maybe for those cows to get in there and they can get that milking process going before they head back to feed and water. The holding area itself is maybe a little different, and it's going to be a little different based on how you set up your robots. But the biggest thing here is we don't generally put a crowd gate in. And what the reason for that is it depends on your setup of the robots. We don't want to push those cows past a robot that she could access, and especially in this system or setup that you see here. So what we're looking for, once again, is we're looking for that relaxed atmosphere. We want to have a holding area that's the proper size, that it's full, but cows will no pressurize so much to get, let's go through some robots. When we're down to the last maybe 25%, of the cows in that holding area, there will be a robot manager kind of come in, entice some cows to kind of, let's get you queued up to get into that robot as well. Mentioned on the last bullet points about mixing groups. So you maybe brought up pen 1, you're down to the last just few stragglers. We can move them maybe down to another area where there is a couple robots, throw a gate up to let them go through there and then bring in the next group. Or you maybe don't even need to do that, because the groups can be mixed, because when they leave, they will go back through a selection gate that puts them back into the pen that they came from, and with no labor involved. And this is something that we'll talk a little bit about more too. The milking system itself, this is an example here of like a U shape of how the robots are laid out. We've got them, 8 in a row. We've got them more in a parallel kind of setup as well. But it comes down to a little bit of how we're going to determine how many robots. But we're looking at 8 cows an hour. That's how many cows we can put through the V300. And if you really block it, that time, say it's 6.5 minutes to milk that cow, we also have to factor in coming in of the robot and leaving the robot into that as well. And that'll determine, help determine how many robots you need. But you also have to determine, hey, how am I going to have my labor? How many milking shifts? So how many milkings? Am I going 2x, 3x? Am I going to do 2x, but 3x on my fresh cows? So then how many people do I need? How many shifts am I going to have? How long are those shifts as well? That's going to determine, once again, how many robots in the setup itself. Last bullet point there, you maybe read, we're feeding minimal pellet in the robot. Because, like a free traffic system where, it's a driver to get to the robot, here we're just trying to keep those cows content. They know that they are coming to the robot, they're walking in, and they're going back out to get, once again, feed and water. So it's not a driver, just keeping them content while we get through that quick milking process. The other one is the exit area. So now all those cows, they're all going to come out of the robots and they're all going to turn right, in one setup, or they turn left, but they're all going to turn the same way and follow that, back. And like the example here, we're looking for an 8-foot alley generally, because if there happens to be a cow go down, we're looking for overall cow welfare here, cow safety. We want to be able to get in there with a skid steer or something to be able to help that cow, get into a safer area as well. So this sort lane is going to come back, and it's actually going to get to a selection gate that can sort them into a treatment area. And, you can have a palpation rail, hoof trimming chute in there as well, so that we can sort them maybe back into the holding area. If there happens to be an incomplete, we can put them through the robot again, and then they can go back to their pen as well. So we're looking at different things we can do on that exit. Foot bath is another thing. We can angle them to a foot bath, and that we would do for the whole herd. But we have these selection gates throughout the smart selection gates throughout the barn as well. So when, say, a cow is in pen 2 and she goes through where the gate is to go into 1, they'll say, nope, keep going, and then it'll sort her into pen 2. This is great. No labor is required. That's what these smart selections do. They are your labor. They're your people sorting them back into their pen. So that's just a little bit how the cow moves and how that system, very similar really to a conventional. We're moving cows into a holding area, they get milked, and we're returning them back to their pen. We're just throwing in a wee bit more automation to get the milking done, but also to sort them back into their pens. So let's just talk a little bit about capacity, and I'll just make mention, if you could please just use the chat for any questions, and we'll answer them along the way. So just a few more factors about capacity. Okay, how many robots am I going to need for my herd? And so with some of these factors, I've already mentioned the 8 cows an hour. So if you think, say you have 16 robots that are necessary, you know, that's 128 cows an hour. If we're talking parlor rotary terms, it's generally how many cows an hour, you know, can we do? And for this example, that's what you would have. Once again, the size of that group really matters. How many are we going to put in that holding area? 60, 80, 100, 200 really then determines how quickly we want to get through those cows in that holding area. And it's really the efficiency of the staff that are going to work this batch milking to get that last 25% through, then would really speed up on how many cows we can put through an hour. Like DeLaval, we have a lot of standards in the conventional side as well on, you know, how many cows are really staying, you know, in the holding area, but also moving out of their pen, holding area, milking, returning. And so we're going to keep around that same time. So if you're a 2x milking, you know, it's maximum of 60 minutes within that holding pen and that whole journey. And then 3x milking, we're looking at 40 minutes away, because we want to keep about that 120 hours, you know, within the day. That's how that calculation works out. A couple hours away from feed and water. Once again, mentioned before, you got to determine how many milkings we're going to do there and how many shifts. Are we doing 2 or 3 shifts? How long are those shifts going to be? You know, they could be, you know, 3, 5, 6, 7 hours with that. But we really don't want to get maximum of 20 hours of milking a day, because we need the 3 hours, because we wash 3 times a day. We need that time to do the wash. And so it really needs to determine on that aspect of things too, on that how many robots you're going to need. And the last thing, a point that I want to just bring up, you just need to determine what kind of future growth we're going to have. You know, are we a driver? We're really going to drive for more production over time with this facility? Or are we looking for just overall sustainability, you know, to be able to milk our herd of cows, you know, in a manner that we think will work better for our operation? So say you have 12 robots, but you think you're going to do something more in the future, just have a little room in the design for 4 more to sit in there. We go to a maximum of 24 robots right now with our system at one facility. So that's something else we have to factor when we get to the larger operations. So that's a lot of information that you've heard from me so far. I'll ask Stephanie to come on screen as well. Stephanie Dillon has been with DeLaval for many years now through the sales side. Great experience with farms with VMS across North America, and now a strong component of our DeLaval advisory team. And the DeLaval advisory team is out there working with all of our users throughout, with all of our dealers, to get the ultimate that goal setting and accomplishing those goals that farmers want to give. So, Stephanie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you for that introduction. I've been with the advisory team for 4 years now, and I was very excited to get to be a part of the initial launch of batch milking here in North America, working with Rancho Pepper from the start to get them prepared for batch milking. So when I think about the advisory team, we're cow people, we're people, and we kind of work to bridge the gap between the facility, the animals that are in the facility, and the people that are working in the facility. So the best time to bring us into this discussion is when you're in the design process. We can come in and review the design and say, okay, cows are moving well through here. How are people going to move through here? And double check and ensure that our personnel flow is going to work to maximize efficiency in the same way that we're going to do that with cow flow as well. Because if our people can't get from point A to point B quickly, then we have to have more people. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish with batch milking. So bring us in the design phase. We can help review some of those things, come up with some different ideas to make sure that we're building a facility that is going to optimize efficiency from all perspectives. We also work to train employees and to get everyone ready for batch milking. So we will have pre-startup meetings before we get ready for the facility to go over how are we going to move cows? How are we going to sort cows? How are we going to work with herd management? How are we going to accomplish barn chores and ensuring that we're cleaning the barn appropriately and feeding and things like that? As Jason has mentioned in this process, batch milking is really a hybrid. It's a combination. So there's a lot of things that are going to stay the same. There are a lot of things that you will still be able to do as you have done it in a conventional setting. But we want to go ahead and have those meetings anyway, because there are always some nuances and things that change when we're moving to a robotic system. So that is our goal. Our team will come in and help to get you all prepared for the transition, talk to you, do training ahead of time, and then get the startup set up, help you with the startup, and then be there to hold your hand and support you post startup as we work to make this facility reach all your goals. Go ahead and take us to the next slide, please, Jason. I want to talk a little bit about the roles that we have in a batch milking facility, because it's very similar to robotic milking, but with batch milking, we can get a little bit more specific. So first we have our cow handler. This is the person that is bringing animals from their pen, from their loafing pen, to the holding pen. And oftentimes people will say, I'm going to put a warm body in that position. This could be anybody. Anybody can go open gates. Anybody can go get cows and bring them into this facility. But what I want to encourage you to think about is this person is our first line of defense when it comes to animal health and animal welfare. This person is likely to be fetching these cows to the holding pen 6 days a week. They're going to be the first ones to lay eyes on them. They're going to see them when they're getting out of their beds. They're going to see them when they're moving. And if you put a good person in this role that can communicate well with your herd manager, they're going to see cows that need attention before anybody else. You cannot replace that. The robots are going to give you quarter milk weights. They're going to give you milking speed. We're going to be able to look at, if you have activity, we can pull activity data into our health monitoring reports to say these are the cows that are probably sick and need attention. But the cow handler is going to see things that we may not be able to pull into the reports. So I really encourage you to think about this person as kind of your first line of defense for animal health and animal safety. So that person's bringing the cows to the pen and communicating with your herd manager about things that they see with the cows while they're doing it. The next role is our herd manager. They are looking at our health reports that we have generated, milking performance reports, looking for animals that are maybe having milking problems in the robots. Sometimes maybe it's udder conformation, maybe it's temperament, she might need some new training, or maybe it's just a cow that this is not the life for her. So the herd manager can review all of these lists, work to sort those animals, and then live in that sorted area to do all the work that needs to be done, whether that's breeding, shots, hoof trimming, all those sorts of activities. And then the last person that will work in this facility full time is going to be our robot manager. This person is maintaining the equipment. monitoring alarms. So, a cow may step on a teacup and pull it off. That person can run to the robot and reattach it, or run and do a calibration if there's been an issue with the robot. That person is constantly kind of moving through the facility, monitoring the performance of the robots, helping to get cows into the robots if we have a few stragglers, and making sure that things are done as needed. There's certain preventative maintenance that can be done while we're milking. Maybe they want to change liners or do different things like that on 1 or 2 robots while we're milking, and perform that kind of maintenance as well. Sometimes on a small enough facility, your herd manager and your robot manager could be the same person if their access from the sort area to the holding pen and the sort area to the robots is smooth enough. If they can quickly and easily move between those 2 areas, that could be a hybrid role. But once we reach a certain number of robots, it is better to have 2 people in that position, because your herd manager can get covered up sometimes and your robot manager can get covered up sometimes. So I really like to think about those as 3 different roles that are running this facility to keep it all going really smoothly. And our role with the advisory team is to help you find those people, identify those people, train those people, and make it happen. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie, and all your work that you did with the Rancho Pepper area. That we'll learn a little bit more. I'm just before we get to the next comparison aspect of things, there is some questions in the chat. I'm just going to review right now. And one of them, why the maximum robots in a facility of 24? It comes down to technically with just our overall server that we have, that we can actually only control for 24 in one facility. Obviously working on, increasing that right now. But that's kind of our limit. And so once we get to that, then you would have to set up another facility. But on 24, that could be, still a couple thousand cows if you're milking, twice a day. The other one was, how does this system compare with others in regards to production and those factors? I say we're still maybe a little early on in that sense of thing, but remember, robots harvest milk, rotaries harvest milk, parlors harvest milk. The overall herd management based on that farm, that's what makes milk. Getting cows and calf, really good feed, keeping cows healthy, proper living conditions, that makes milk. So we are a little early on that, but just remember that factor. The other one was, what is the recommended size of a holding pen? 15 square feet is generally what we use for that. Still maybe depends a little bit on how you set up the robots, but we're using that as a general one. Just like any other facility, we don't want it too big that cows have too much room as well. One more, how common is this kind of system in the US? And in which cases would you recommend this system over classic VMS? We're going to get into some of the comparison. We only have 1 farm in the US right now. We have about 10 facilities in the world doing it right now, but we'll get down to a little bit of the comparison in this next section as well. One more, has this been done on smaller scale size, like 60 cows? I think there are maybe a few facilities that are a bit like that, but I wouldn't call them like true batch milking facilities, and I would say they'd be under 60 cows. But we see batch milking really coming into effect when you're getting into that 200 or 300 cows. That's where we really see that going that way as well. So, and then asking for some more statistics on the current facility. I will get that down to the end because we're going to have some more information on our Texas barn soon. So thanks for the stuff in the chat. Please keep it up. We like the questions. Let's get into some of the comparison. Why should I go VMS batch milking compared to a rotary? The rotary will just get it done. Voluntary milking has been proven. Why wouldn't we just continue with that? Let's just talk about some of those points that we see. And let's start off. Say you're milking 1,000 cows and you're going to have maybe 20 robots with this and E-series rotary and maybe a 40 bale rotary. So certainly the output of it, so cows per hour, if you have 8 cows per hour, 20 robots, it's 160 cows per hour. And you have a 40 bale, you're getting about 5.6 turns. That's 224 cows an hour. We know rotaries are going to output better, for sure. That is a big thing, and it is even is determined when you get to the amount of time in the milking shift as well. The rotary side is going to be bigger because we can turn that rotary, even a little faster, as well. But we're a standard unit like the robot. We're kind of set based on that time as well. So kind of advantage goes to output probably on the rotary, but the real reason you go to batch milking still is probably more on the labor side, and that's what we're going to get into now. The labor side of things, you're still going to have on a 1,000 cow area, you're still going to have one person moving those cows. Coming out of that pen, down that transfer lane into the holding area. It's pretty much even Steven there. Where we see, the real difference is when you get down to the milking aspect of things. And Stephanie mentioned that robot manager. It's probably going to be here on this size of operation, and possibly not if it's a little lower. But, when you get to a rotary, generally, you're going to have a person that preps, person that attaches, and then somebody that's post-dipping and is a bit of that floater, unless they want to put on some technology, like our teat spray robot that we have at DeLaval. And then finally, you're still probably going to have more of that person that's educated for, their overall cow health, that sort area, the breeding, attention cows, that sort of thing. There's still going to be probably one person that really manages that side of it. So in a general sense of things, this is how we see, the real differences between the two. You look at some of the duties that come along with it as well, some of the tasks. We are components of really washing down your equipment at the end of the milking time as well, the milking shift, to keep that equipment in good shape. Probably those 3 people would clean, and you got to exterior clean 20 robots. You're popping in little different areas. It could take about an hour. And on the rotary, it'll go a little faster. We're a little bigger. We can probably get a little bit of automation even there when it comes to some of that cleaning. The holding area, and this has been something, when we look at the holding area in a traditional, they usually, have that slope to them. And that hasn't been always the greatest thing for foot health. Still, that crowd gate is pushing them up. Is that the kind of experience that you're looking for? And if you're looking for something a little more relaxed, then traditionally here we're having more of a flat floor, with VMS batch milking. It's got a little bit of, percent slope to it for drainage, but certainly a nicer environment for those cows. This is a big one. Milking process on robots, we can quarter milk. We have 4 milk meters for, conductivity, blood, milk flow, milk weight. And it's that consistency that we talked about that's key, and so much data. But that robot is there every milking. It's there Christmas morning. It's Sunday after the big party. It's when kids go back to school, that robot is still there. And that's what people are looking for, that consistency. They know that there's going to be a milking every single day. One thing we do have to deal with is incompletes. If there happens to be an incomplete on a cow, we'll have to, put in, bringing her back, or, setting some kind of parameter to deal with that. On a rotary side of things, we're still cluster milking, 1 milk meter. Quite often we have the milk meter for the conductivity and blood, but it's on a whole other composite that we'd be dealing with. Main factors, we always know it's going to be attached. That person is always going to attach, to every single cow. So you have that visual for every milking that you're going to be there to see. The one thing you're going to have to deal with is, maybe that cow kind of goes around the bend. Now she kicked off. Now we got to go and deal with that kickoff. That's just some of the things that we know are in rotary milking compared to robot milking. If you're going to add additional technology, well, at DeLaval, we have the V310 robot with DeLaval Repro technology, and that is testing progesterone in milk to ultimately see a cow's cycle for reproduction. And this technology is on our robots, but we don't offer it on rotaries or parlors. So if you're looking for additional herd management technology, robots would be, a bigger advantage for you. But we have so much more at DeLaval when it comes to herd management technology, like our body condition score camera. We have cow health index. And then we have our DeLaval Plus behavior system, the new AI sourced system, for overall cow health and reproduction. And all of these can be in both situations. So we still offer great herd management on both systems. So what's really kind of the main message here from rotary to batch milking? It's going to be the labor. Like it's for sure. We do not want to depend on people as much to milk our cows. Let's get robots in there so we know they're there. We can get more data. The milking procedure is very consistent. And now we can upgrade some new technology from DeLaval, to help us get, other things done for the overall health of the cow. And that's really where you make, money is certainly in the overall management of those cows. Let's run through this before we get to the rest of the questions, but keep them coming. So why batch milking over voluntary? We're so used to voluntary milking and now batch milking, but I think alarms are one thing that, we've heard of, is that if there happens to be an alarm on the robot that they need to attend to it, someone's going to be in the barn because it's during that milking process and that milking shift, I should say. And so somebody is there to deal with it. And when it happens and they can get it solved right away, it doesn't affect the rest of the cows, coming at all. Where in a voluntary, we know there's going to be some alarms and it happens at 2 a.m. You're out of bed or you're going to wait till 5 a.m. and it could back up, some things with the cows. Unless you're at a larger facility that we have more night shift people that can deal with the alarms. But it's that this is a large one that we have been told and seen. This is a big one for me, and you're still with one sort area. So on traditional parlor barns, rotary barns, those cows are coming out of the exit of, and they go right into one sort area that those herd managers can really monitor those cows and do what they need to do. In a voluntary barn, if you have a larger facility, like 18 robots, say, you could have, 6 different pens if you got 3 robots per pen. So now you're kind of moving from pen to pen and that sort of thing, where it's a lot more efficient just with one sort area. We can have a palpation rail, we can have a really good hoof trimming chute and a really nice vet office. And you can invest more in one spot, for the sort area. Same thing with special cows. If there's a real special needs cow, she could, there could be one in different parts of the barn, but we can still have one area here. Mentioned before, just like the simple things like bedding, with voluntary, sometimes you move the cows to one side, to be able to get your equipment in, to get that bedding in. And can be a disruption sometimes, but now we're moving all those cows out quickly in and out, not having to worry about cows in the way. Makes it a lot simpler. Foot bath is another thing that we really stress. Foot health is so important in robot facilities. So now we can have one lane, one foot bath, easier to manage, easier to keep track of. Where sometimes foot baths, there's a series of a number of them, whether you have them automated or you're self-cleaning them, it's a job. So if you could have maybe 6 different foot baths, it's easier to maintain one really, really well more often. That'll be better for your overall foot health of your herd. This is one that, we could certainly talk a lot about. And it's just maybe that labor again that Stephanie was mentioning. You're staying with more specific jobs than VMS batch milking. That cow handler, moving the cows, herd health person, robot holding area person. But I think in voluntary, the people that we have working in the barn, they have a lot of different jobs. They're fetching cows. They're dealing with sort cows, which may be breeding cows, dealing with, cows with issues, robot maintenance as well. So you need a person that's pretty well-rounded. If, you're looking for that sort of person, that's sometimes a little tougher too. So there could be, more of a specific jobs that may be easier to find in VMS batch milking like you would conventional milking. Feeding here, lots of people from the nutrition world on today, but hey, we're sticking with a TMR because we're not feeding a lot of pellets in the robots. There's no need to worry about balancing for that. You can keep your same TMR. You got your high group, low group, fresh group, that sort of thing. Keep it consistent. Feeders will love it. Where we know we're dealing with more of a PMR in a voluntary system, and we're having to balance that energy in the robot or energy in the bunk. And sometimes that could be challenging from year to year based on the forages, that have been harvested in that year. When it comes down to maintenance and service time-wise, so if you have a dozen, 15 robots in a batch milking and we're doing service on one, and, that day, we can, it's okay. We got 14 others, that'll milk the cows, where sometimes it can be a factor in the voluntary system. If you're in there doing some service work and you have one robot pen, two robot pen, three robot pen, you're down 100%, 50, 33% of the amount of ability to milk cows. And that can sometimes back up, if it's a larger service or something like that. So this is something just to consider. It's a little peace of mind knowing, hey, we're going to work on this one robot. We got lots more to get those cows milked. So some factors too, number of milkings. We know we're going to be probably generally 2x milking. There'll be some that will do some 3x milking as well. But we know in robotics, in a voluntary system, we can get those cows in the first 100 days, with 3, 4, 5, 6 times they can get milk. That's a good advantage on the voluntary side. Moving those cows, we're back to moving them as a group, up to a holding area, that maybe some people would rather have a cow on her time. She is in her pen, managing, going to feed, laying down, eating, milking, socializing, that sort of thing. That's a nice advantage on the voluntary side, though. But when you get to fetch cows, I guess you're fetching the whole herd or that group pen up to the batch milking facility, where you still probably have to deal with some fetch cows on a voluntary side. So, what's our main message? There's lots of points. There's probably more that you're thinking of as well. But, for batch milking, you just really kind of think it's coming back to that conventional management that people like. They want to have milking time set. They want to have easy TMR feeding. The labor duties of their staff now, I don't have to reteach them too much. We can manage alarms probably a lot easier as well. And I think that one sort area is going to be pretty attractive, to people too. We can quickly get those cows, dried off or, anything like that in one sort area instead of going to different pens. Better use of time management here overall. So this is some of just the thoughts, how we think where conventional milking, and robotic milking can really benefit, when it comes to a new source, which is VMS batch milking. So I'm going to quickly, before we just get into the next little bit, I see we have some time here. And Stephanie, if you want to stay alert, there might be some things I may ask you here. And this is the one. Do you need a robot manager on all 3 shifts for larger herds milking 3 times a day?
I'm going to say robot manager, yes. Herd manager, maybe not. I have a few farms that they do all of their herd work in their first shift, and they don't do herd work for, they just have 2 shifts. They don't do the herd work for the second shift. So that herds person isn't there during that second shift, and they just have a guy that's moving cows and a guy that's monitoring robots. So I would say, yes, we need somebody there at all times that is monitoring robots. Whether that person maybe has time to do other roles as well, probably, potentially. But we definitely need somebody there that is monitoring robots and ensuring that they're staying open and available to milk all the cows during milking. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be a technician or a person that is doing maintenance at all 3 shifts. But we do need someone in the role of staying alert to the robots and their performance.
And I think we've seen, that good tandem of that robot manager and the cow, mover, that their handler, they really work well together, to get those groups through efficiently.
Yep.
Next one was just about the maintenance of a 20 V300 compared to a 40 bale E-Series, but I'll just kind of make mention there's no difference in maintenance from a robot in a voluntary system than there would be a robot in a batch milking. We still have, chemicals going through that robot 3 times a day. Obviously we're going to put as many milkings as we can, or based on, how many cows you have as well, to that as well. So I think that's important. We can get some other details, on that, but we all know there's maintenances on both. And having regular maintenance on a robot or in a rotary will certainly help stop, any issues, moving forward. One is just a little bit on capital investment for each situation, how it compares with a double 24 fast exit when it is investment. I'll probably refer that back to your DeLaval dealer to probably quote you on that. But yeah, just think, yes, the robotic side will cost a little bit more. But once again, I call it you're prepaying your labor. So if you were to look at this 15 years down the road and what has happened and how much you've paid in labor and how much you've paid in, with the robots itself, it's going to be pretty even. So I think it's up to you as manager of a farm on who you want to really manage. You want to manage people, or you really want to manage cows? And I think that's really up to you on that side of things. Square feet needed for a 20x batch milking compared to a 40 bale rotary, holding pen, return lanes, robots, and parlor. Yeah, once again, I think it's going to be fairly similar as well. What we've seen is that, the holding area itself, like I mentioned, that 15 square feet. And then it depends on how you set up your robots. It's still going to be, that same kind of similar square footage, I would say, as a rotary. The other thing too is we got to remember we're still looking at equipment rooms, chemical rooms, tank rooms, all those offices and everything. So if you're looking for the full structure, of it, it should be fairly similar. Return lanes are, we have maybe a common lane today, but we want to have it divided up. So if you're retrofitting a barn, make sure that your lanes you have now for moving cows are going to be wide enough to have 2 or 3 cows wide to take them to the holding area, but wide enough for a single cow kind of return coming back. That's what I'd maybe suggest when you're looking at retrofitting. If it's obviously a new facility, we can set it up properly. Is heating an issue in the wintertime to prevent freeze up? For sure. You can determine what kind of heat source that you want to put in. Yeah, you need to make sure that facility is ready for any kind of cold. And I know there's been some cold, I know across North America, that some people don't normally get, right, Stephanie?
Yes, we're not accustomed. We're not accustomed to the weather that we've had the last few weeks, but a lot of our farmers have been using propane heaters. They'll use those salamander heaters to direct them at the arm to keep them from freezing. And then we also have a setting with the robots to not hold the milk tubes once the cow is attached, and that allows the arm to kind of stay tucked back closer to the heat. And we have several tips and tricks that we have learned over the years to manage with the freezing temperatures, for sure.
Right on. Hey, there's a few more questions, but I'd just like to finish up just the presentation itself, a couple more slides, and then we'll come back to the questions, and Stephanie will have you join back later. So this VMS series is one of 3, if you happen to notice when you were signing up. And our next one is going to be the experience of our Texas farm that we have. And then we'll bring in Robert Jensen from DeLaval in Europe, who will talk about the experiences that are occurring in Europe right now and the rest of the world when it comes to VMS batch milking. So if you go to our Canadian and US websites, then you will be able to see and learn, then events, and then you'll see the VMS batch milking, or just continue to follow us on social media, and you'll be able to see the link through that as well. But I want to show you a bit of the trailer, so to speak, of our next speaker. So Dr. Juan Velez, that is representing Aurora Organic very large organic dairy producer in the U.S. that has set up Rancho Pepper Dairy as a 2,000 cow, ready for 2,000 cow dairy on this pasture-based organic dairy. Here's a little testimonial from the herd manager, Don Dial.
Hi, my name is Don Dial, and I'm the manager here at this facility down in Dublin, Texas. We're milking 1,900 cows with 22 VMSs, and we are a pasture-based facility here. So the reason we chose the batch VMS system is because we didn't want to change up how we actually milk the cows. Talking with DeLaval, they gave us the flexibility to, okay, let's try this. Okay, we're not going to build a freestall barn. We're not going to have voluntary coming in. How can we still utilize the VMS system for us to be able to manage organically and pasture-based, but still have the flexibility of having the VMSs to do the labor? This is basically a parallel barn with VMSs. They come in and they feed off both sides. So you got the VMS doing the job of the people, the human, and it's working. What would I say to somebody that's thinking about it? And I've even told people, you know, in my neighborhood that, like, it actually works. I said, it's pretty cool. I mean, and I'm the first one to be like, hey, you should come see it, you know? DeLaval gave great support, and standing here today, or sitting here today, they still do. I mean, they're opt to help us with whatever we need. So they're actually here today, going to do some more training with us. So no, they're really supportive. And I'm not trying to sell your VMS either, but I mean, it was way better than anybody expected at the end of the day. It's our dairy and it's our business, but it's also a show piece. I mean, it's something to see. That's for sure. These cows are very relaxed. I mean, I feel they're more relaxed than any parallel I've ever been in my life, right? Oh, I would do this again. Yeah, I would do this again. Definitely would do this again.
So certainly, if you saw that, you know, the overview there of that facility, you know, they have 8 different pens with 250 cows per pen. That's what they're going to work up to. Currently, you heard her saying milking 1,900 at the time of that video. They're milking maybe a few more now. But you know, we're going to be having this on the next webinar. So make sure you get registered for that. Feel free to contact your DeLaval dealer, you know, for any information. But also, if you're looking for information, you can contact myself. You know, my email here on the screen, and you know, we can help you guide you the right way. You know, if you want more information on VMS batch milking. So let's finish up some of the things that we have in here. Can you get away with not feeding any pellets in the robot? Andrew, that's a great question, because you know, if you look at conventional milking, we all started with, you know, pellets and rotaries and pellets and parlors, and now there isn't any. And I'd say that's probably something that we're getting challenged with as well, you know, and looking at that factor, what that includes. But, you know, if there happens to be no pellets in the robot, we want to make sure that the rest of the facility, you know, is working extremely well. Really good feed back out at the bunk or pasture like this Rancho Pepper is doing. So I think it could be a discussion point on how we maybe want to do that in the future. Good question. See here as well, you usually get a little extra milk from voluntary VMS to help pay for the robots. However, there won't be any extra milk output against a 3X rotary system on a batch milker, but still the same or marginally lower capital cost. And so it's kind of interesting there as well. And I don't know what you think, Stephanie, but even the robotic effect of just consistent milking, you know, getting proper milking procedure, you know, once again, we harvest milk, but consistent milking procedure, you know, helps bring on a bit more milk too.
For sure. And I think Zaman responded to that comment in the chat. And I think a lot of it's labor costs. You know, we're hopefully going to have 2 or 3 less people per shift to do the work that we're not having to pay. And when you look at that cost adds up a lot over time. And I think that's more where we're seeing savings here.
Right. Like I said in the other example, if you look over a 15-year period, you know, it is the labor. And I think it really comes down to, you know, how your VMS your way, you know, once again, do you want to manage people or do you want to manage cows? Cows don't normally talk back or not show up or that sort of thing. But, you know, that's, I think, what you have to get to in that investment aspect of things, you know, and how you're going to grow or if you're going to try to stay sustainable. We've even had, you know, examples of it's a better public image in their area. Maybe they're even processing milk that's coming from robotics and than conventional. So everybody's got their own story of why they would do robotics in general, let alone go in the VMS batch.
And I will give one more example to add on to that. Rancho Pepper had some issues with some staffing and people left unexpectedly, where they had 3 people per shift. Then they were down to 2 people per shift, and they were able to do it. It was not ideal, and I'm sure not everything went perfectly. But when one person didn't show up that day, the robots also could milk the cows, and they could scramble enough together to make everything else happen. Where in a rotary perspective, if you don't have somebody there to strip, dip, wipe, they're not there. They're not there. And you're scrambling, or you're having to slow the rotary down to compensate for a lack of personnel. Where in this case, if people don't show up, you can continue to go about your business without too much of a headache.
Yeah, there's some just thoughts on barn design planning for this as well. So yeah, each market area would have a facility planning that all support the DeLaval dealers in North America. I know our team, Robert Pohl, Keith Ortiz, Jeff Prayshaw, very well versed on that as well. And certainly our group around the world too. A little shout out for some top designers too. Which is nice. Great. How does the computer transmit? That's probably data with so many in one area pulling data. Just Stephanie, maybe you can better answer that.
So the way that our systems work is our robots are all communicating to a central system controller, and the cows are simply wearing RFID tags. So those RFID tags are not pinging. It's not working via Wi-Fi. When they come into the robot is reading them, and then that robot is communicating via Ethernet to a system controller. So that is all hardwired in, and it is not requiring Wi-Fi or any other kind of data processing to communicate that information back to the system controller and then to the computer.
Right on. Yeah, thanks for the kind words. Yeah, we really want to bring this concept out more to the industry because, you know, once again, you know, thank you very much for all the dairy producers that joined us today. But it takes a team. It takes a team to, you know, come up with, you know, and work with your facility. And at DeLaval, we're here in the advisory team, our technical team, you know, but also all your own consultants that you have, you know, need to be educated on what this is all about too. And so look forward to educating you a little bit more on VMS batch milking soon. So we'll see you in February for round 2 of our webinar series. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Muad'Din in the back.